It's a lonely world out there for a number 9, even more so now because they're being asked to do so much. Players that have played for 20 odd years in the league can sort of learn to be a good coach, but I don't think you can ever give somebody 25 years or 20 years football experience, if you like. It's like, well, people will say, oh, you only get 3 or 4 shots on a Saturday. It's like, well, if you want your midfielder to hit 5 or 6 80-yard diags, would you only let him hit them once or 2 times a week? There is definitely a danger of, as a 9, being overcoached and being too compliant, for sure, because I've been there. I took way too much on board of what people were telling me to do, and I got almost obsessed with keeping the ball. And then you go 90 minutes and you've done nothing of note, and you're like, I went from being this really exciting player who was just like off the cuff. Like, I didn't know what I was doing, so these centre-halves definitely didn't know what I was doing. Just flicking things around the corner and just running after them, to them being like, right, I need to take 2 touches here. I need to secure this ball.
Hello, welcome to the Modern Soccer Coach podcast, our last interview of 2024. It's a big one. Conor Washington, QPR, Derby County, over 400 appearances at the professional level and also international football, over 40 caps for Northern Ireland as well. He's still banging in goals, but he's already started the preparation of the next part of his journey as well. Started up his own academy, working with attacking players and supporting them, not only with extra training, but also with psychological support, also with tactical analysis support. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the demands of the modern attacking player, how much they need extra support, and if a team coach can actually help provide a little bit more as well. It's a really, really unique topic. Big thanks to Conor for jumping on. I think you'll enjoy this here. Also, as we finish the year, we have a massive offer, Modern Soccer Coach. We are giving away all our Modern Soccer Coach ebooks, which has got our passing warm-ups, it's got our attacking training sessions, our scanning, our pressing, our defending exercises, small-sided games, and we're also throwing in our set piece package, which has got our attacking corner routines and also has all the set piece webinars that we've done. We're throwing it all together for $45. It's such a good deal. We can only keep it going for 3 days. So if you want to take advantage of it, get it on the link below, modernsoccercoach.com/shop. It's going to be open for 3 days only. So get your package today. It's over 60% off. So if you want to support the work that we've done all year, all the free content we've put out, all the podcasts we put out, if you want to just say, listen, you know what, I'm going to support what they're doing and help them, you can go on the link below, modernsoccercoach.com/shop. And you can also get some ideas for the new year ahead. modernsoccercoach.com/shop. Really appreciate the support. Thanks for everything. Before you go, please like and subscribe. Here is Conor. Enjoy it. Conor, thanks so much for joining me today on the Modern Soccer Coach podcast. Really, really excited to chat.
No, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Where do you sit on the continuum of goal scoring coached versus born goal scorers?
Foot in both camps, I would say, just to sit on the fence early doors. Listen, is there players that naturally do things from a really early age that sort of predisposes them to scoring more goals? Yeah, like whether it's recognition of space, even recognition of, almost like a bit of an intuition of what's happening next. But also, I do think, can you get better at it? Yeah, 100%. Can you turn your average grassroots striker into Lewandowski within 3 weeks? No, of course not. But can you make a measurable difference to forward players in terms of productivity, movement, just maybe little things for them to think about that might affect their game in a positive way? Yeah, I do 100% believe that. So, yeah, foot in both camps.
You mentioned there just before we start recording about your experience with a coach that helped you kind of ball striking, and you said, and I reached for like, we got to start recording very quickly. You said that that you didn't really learn to strike a ball till 23. So let's talk about that journey for a professional footballer. I suppose my first question is, under what context was that brought the awareness to you? And then second of all, why do you think that was kind of overlooked in your academy days?
Well, I think, if we start with the academy stuff, I mean, I just had such a funny route into the game that I wasn't in any academy setup. I've never set foot in an academy other than maybe a couple of trials. So I was street footballer, grassroots footballer, quick, strong, powerful, love to run in behind, just naturally, like half decent recognition of space, and then sort of just fell into football really. From when I was about 18, 19, went from step 5 over here to the National League as it is now. And I just felt like I was learning on the fly all the time. And it wasn't until I went on a really bad goal drought, I just couldn't, the ball just wasn't going in the back of the net. Everything was scruffy, even in training. And then sort of twist of fate, really. I'm scrolling through Instagram and I see this guy just training. I don't know if it was on his own at the time. He's just posting loads of content. He's just putting it in the top corner all the time. Like he's got one of those target nets and everything's bottom corner, top corner, bottom corner, top corner. And I thought, I'll have a look at that. He didn't seem too far away from me location-wise. And I thought, yeah, like he's just come back from America, setting himself up, superior striker. Everyone's probably heard of him by now in the coaching communities, Alan Russell. I'd seen that he worked with, I think it was Berahino at the time, maybe Andre Gray. And they were both sort of getting headlines at the time. Berahino was flying. Andre Gray was, I don't know if he just moved, but he was scoring a lot of goals. And I thought, yeah, listen, football's very incestuous in that. Like if you see somebody else doing something, I'll have a piece of that. So I thought, right, I got in contact with him. He came down. We had a good couple of first sessions. And there was just really simple technical things that you wouldn't even consider really. And you would expect a 23-year-old professional footballer playing in League One to sort of know. But I don't know if these kids get taught in academies, these sort of things. But there was just technical little cues and things on shot selection and things like that I just hadn't considered, if I'm honest, because like I say, I was just learning on the fly, really.
Oh, I'm going to keep you there. The shot selection, like I think it's really interesting. There's a data disconnect almost where, with all the data that's entered football, and I've seen this where someone says, well, the shot selection's bad, so they think that you can roll up to a 25-year-old, show them a shot map, and all of a sudden their eyes open up, but it's not as powerful as the data analyst believes it to be. So how does that communication, what did that look like in terms of, I can't imagine you stand on the penalty spot with a bag of balls just shooting. So how did he get buy-in from you?
So I think a lot of it in football is, there's a great quote, I think it was, I'll go in old school here, Theodore Roosevelt, about the man in the arena. And I think because he'd played at the level, he'd made mistakes at the level, and then he'd gone away and done a lot of research into how goals are scored, keeper behaviours and things like that. I think naturally as a footballer, you just got a bit more of a connection with somebody like that, especially as a striker, because as we'll probably get into later in the podcast, it's a lonely world out there for a number 9. Even more so now, because they're being asked to do so much. But the fact that he could shift it out of his feet and stick it in the top corner, or just sort of gets you off your seat straight away. Like he knows what he's talking about. And I think it's a bit of a debate in football still around people that play and how easily we get coaching badges and things like this. But I don't think you can ever get away from the fact that players that have played for 20 odd years in the league can sort of learn, and if they want to, I'm saying, to be a good coach. But I don't think you can ever give somebody 25 years or 20 years football experience, if you like. So not saying that it's a prerequisite for being a good coach, absolutely not. But does it help get buy-in from players? Yeah, of course it does. It's no different to any other industry. I think I saw a quote about it the other day about a plumber. Like if your son went to a college, would you want them to be taught by somebody who'd actually done plumbing or who just theoretically learned about plumbing? And I was like, yeah, I can sort of see that. So yeah, that was where the buy-in came from. And obviously at this point I'm thinking, right, I think I've 1 in 12 or something. And I'm thinking, right, this was supposed to be a big year for me. Establishing myself as the main number 9 at Peterborough just wasn't going. So I'm searching for it anyway. And it just sort of fell into my lap, really.
Again, sticking with the technique part and the ball striking, because again, I'm fascinated by this area where I've seen strength and conditioning coaches try to change biomechanics of players that are, and I'm looking at going, you've no chance of changing that. They're so ingrained in their gait and their movement. And then I think of a golfer changing their swing. And when you change your swing, there's going to be a natural defect before it gets any better. Was there any part of your game that got worse before it got better, or did you kick on right away?
I kicked on right away, to be honest, because I don't think we were going sort of granular with the detail. It wasn't like you see this like pentagon on the ball, you're hitting this specific square, and you need to make sure your foot goes just here. It was sort of like just general rules of, right, if you want to stick it in that far corner, you know you're going to have to start it outside the post. So if you over-rotate your hips and come off balance, like the ball's going in the middle of the goal, basically, it's never going to stay out enough to then curl back in. Just technical discipline with your upper body. Obviously, it's a classic, isn't it? You're leaning back. Everyone says it. But, okay, what's the solution? Are you like this, folded in half, or are you just in a more controlled position? I think a lot of it was around balance. Follow-throughs were big. So it all sort of fits into the same thing with balance, I guess. But, I mean, we were talking about Kane earlier. There was a video I posted, and he's hit this half volley, and he's absolutely ripped the leather off of it. Ball's travelling sort of, I don't know, 60 plus mile an hour. And as it's hit the net, he doesn't stumble, doesn't fall. He just literally plants his other foot down, and he's set. And you just think the technical discipline that requires to be able to do that, because you see it all the time, and I've seen it when I'm coaching grassroots players. They're swinging the life out of their leg. The leg's coming up here on the follow through, and they're stumbling back. And then they're wondering why it's flying over the bar or going way wide of the post. And you're like, well, there's just little sort of technical cues, really, rather than, like you say, changing mechanics that are really important to ball striking, whether that be, and all different strikes have got different cues, really. Like the straight one across the goalie has got different cues to what a whip would have. And it wasn't until that I started watching players do it now that I'm like, oh, you can see that, especially with the more elite finishers.
Yeah, again, it's fascinating that level of control. I mean, their ability to generate power. I don't think we talk about that enough. Well, how to generate power without looking as if your hamstring's going to give way at times. I mean, going to that there, talking about that discipline. I've never heard that there referenced before. Can you talk a little bit about how you would, or how you've experienced, and then how you kind of communicate that to players?
It's an interesting one for me, because obviously I've had it communicated to me, and I sort of understood it. I felt like relatively quickly, and within a few sessions, I sort of managed to get it. But in a couple of sessions that I've done with the grassroots kids, I feel like I need to slow-mo them, because I'm telling them things and I'm not sure that they're necessarily getting it. And a good thing that Alan had done with me was the iPad slow-mo, and then what I'm seeing, I can obviously then show them and say, right, this is where you're going wrong. So I think like that level of analysis, I genuinely think is important. Do you need to film every time you have a shot? No, of course you don't. But I check in every now and then. If you notice, right, every time I come inside and I go for that far corner, I'm just leaving it out there. So where are my hips pointed? And it's the straight one across the goalie is a great example, because where your hips are aiming, if you swing your leg on a straight line, it's where the ball's going, if you make good contact with it. So if your hips are aimed in the middle of the goal and you swing a straight leg at it, it's going in the middle of the goalkeeper's hands. So that was an interesting thing as you're approaching the ball. Right, where should I set myself? And this is one of those things that, like, are you going to be thinking about that in a game? No, of course not. It's just out of your head. You're just finishing. But if you've done 20, 30 reps of that during the week, then yeah, of course you're going to feel more confident about it. You're going to have a more disciplined technique. And even things with like foot patterns into the ball. You watch Harry Kane's brilliant at it. Like, within the last sort of 4 or 5 steps of when he's going to strike a ball, you'll notice a real change in his step pattern. It becomes a lot shorter. I think he even sort of does it for the penalties. He does like a little run up. And it just goes back to that balance thing again, because as soon as you're lunging at the ball, it's interesting because I had a debate with somebody on LinkedIn. Like, obviously not every goal is a perfect example of technical discipline. Of course it isn't. But should we be striving for that? Yeah, I think we should be. And then, because then if you are off balance, hopefully you've got enough of the other factors that are technically disciplined in that particular strike that you can almost get away with it. If you're off balance and your leg's swinging up there and your hips are over there, the ball's not going in the goal. But if you can get maybe 3 of the 4 or something working in the right direction, then the chances are a lot better.
Yeah, the hips one is interesting as well. That why do we not talk about hips? And I thought that was something about when I was growing up. That was something that was kind of talked about. I never hear that as much now.
Well, no, you see the dragged finish all the time, don't you? Like somebody opens up, maybe they try to go near post and they just over rotate, or they go for that far post, they over rotate, and the keeper's like that. Cherries, cheers. So, and I think everyone will have their own sort of like fingerprint to it. That no, we don't want anyone to strike the ball the same, but there'll be a cue here or there that will just click with you as an individual, and you'll go, yeah, I get that. So I think that's where we should be striving. I don't think ball striking coaches who are teaching every single player the same technique are necessary. I genuinely don't. But if you can get in a routine where you're doing 20, 25 reps and you're just feeling that every time, right, okay, then your brain, as a footballer, you're pretty perceptive anyway to get to that level. And obviously you know your body pretty well. So you'll naturally just work out, right, where do I need to start that ball? And I think the other thing about the finishing, especially inside the box, is a great reference point. So like we were speaking about earlier, you don't have loads of time to think in the box. But if you, out of the corner of your eye, peripheral vision, you see, right, the corner of the 6 is there, you know where that goal is now. So instantly, shot selection is right, low, driven across the goalie. You don't even have to look. Which is why I think being in the box, getting loads of reps inside the box is just gold dust to players, and I don't think anybody at academy level, first team level, is doing it enough.
Hello coaches, we'll take a quick break here. Again, it's our last interview of 2024. I really appreciate all the support, all the likes, all the subscriptions, and the comments below as well. In recent weeks, we've asked for more comments, just saying, listen, enjoyed it, or hey, question about this or question about that, and we try to get the question to the guest. But I really, really appreciate all the support. All that there adds to the engagement, which adds to helping us getting more content out to coaches and spreading the word of Modern Soccer Coach. So anytime you can like, anytime you can subscribe, anytime you can just put a comment in to tell us what you think, it's really, really appreciated. If you want to go one step above and beyond this year and just check out our offer, Modern Soccer Coach end of year offer, 3 days only. It's got all our ebooks and our set piece package for only $45. It's too good a deal to keep open for long. I keep saying it, but it's 3 days. We can keep it open. So modernsoccercoach.com/shop. I'll put the link below. Tons of ideas, tons of sessions, tons of videos. And it's got the webinars in there as well that we don't have out on our YouTube page. That's got all the set piece work. Please check it out, modernsoccercoach.com/shop, and appreciate all the support.
Yeah, brings us on nicely. Before we get there on the coaching side and the collective view of coaching, I'll have 2 questions for you. How would you judge the success of even Alan's work with you? Like, is it unfair to judge that in goals, or in a data-driven world, for a success of a forwards coach? Did you at the time, did you notice an increase in shot quality or goals scored?
Yeah, I went on a crazy run of goals scoring, to be fair. So yeah, it was an easy. It's easy for me to say yeah, and I would say most people that work with Alan sort of went on similar sort of runs. To be honest, I think because the funny thing about it is Alan's brilliant, but I think you get that. You get such a small amount of shooting, finishing, whatever it is during the week, that if you can just even take a bag of balls out yourself and do it, I genuinely think you would notice a difference, because it's just pure repetition. And I just think it's just not happening anywhere near enough. Like some days I come off the training pitch and you might have had 4 shots. It's like, well, people will say, oh, you only get 3 or 4 shots on a Saturday. It's like, well, if you want your midfielder to hit 5 or 6 80-yard diags, would you only let him hit them once or two times a week? I just think football needs to go a little bit more down the individualised route, because I think outside of being a goalkeeper, striker's the most specialist position. And I think if you look at possessions, rondos, counter-press rondos, shape, whatever we're doing now, passing patterns, they're just not realistic for a striker, because we play the game 90% or maybe a little bit less. I don't know the exact data on that. So any data people out there, sorry. But I play with my back to goal 99% of the time. So what I see looks very different to what everybody else is. I'm in the middle of the pitch. There's no reference point for me. I'm not a winger that I'm thinking, right, I know nobody's here because the touchline's here. I'm like, I could get tackled by the 6. I could get tackled by the centre half. Maybe the fullback's in on me. So just the way that I see the game is very different. And I don't think and I think this is why we're seeing such a lack of number 9s coming through in academy football and also at the elite level as well.
I suppose Robbie Keane was on last week talking to Rio Ferdinand about it, and he put it down that it's more glamorous today to be a wide attacker and those big profile, high profile names. But there's also got to be, right, you've been in these environments for so long, there's got to be a possession-based impact to football these days.
Yeah, I would say so. I've noticed that there's somebody probably a little bit similar to Keane in the way he played football, and then old school players like Ian Wright. Like, how many goals do you see Ian Wright getting? He's in one-on-one with the goalie because somebody's put him in. Like Robbie Keane the same, Michael Owen. Would they be able to do that now? Even Haaland, like how many Haaland at Dortmund, very different player. Obviously, they're playing for different teams, of course they are. But that whole just top line first is, I say it to the lads all the time, like, please just look for me. Because if you can get in on one pass, why wouldn't you? It's just why I think Liverpool have been so successful with it over the years. You've got the quality of Trent, and then you've got people that want to run in behind and centrally as Mane, Salah. It's no surprise they score a ton of goals, especially with how everybody wants to press. Everybody goes man for man. Yeah, I think it's a shame because that's the football I like to see. I like to see football where it's attacking with intent and 40, 50 pass moves that end with a little cutback. Like, yeah, lovely goal, obviously, but I'm a bit more sort of rough and tumble. And especially, I think, obviously, I'm biased because the way I play is like, I'm going to run it behind, stick it in there sort of thing. So that's naturally what I want to see anyway.
I think there's definitely a demand for that type of football. Like, I was even find myself on, obviously, with selection, you catch yourself with your preferences on Saturday at City versus Palace. Was it City Palace Saturday? And I watched it. And when it became cat and mouse, I kind of disengaged. I looked to change the channel for another match. There was a little bit more cut and thrust. And I'm like I said, grew up a United fan, but I'd watch Liverpool any day of the week because of that verticality piece. It's interesting. It's interesting where that movement. I saw a clip this morning with Lewandowski talking to Rio Ferdinand these days, and he was talking about Guardiola said to him that he couldn't teach him anything about scoring goals, but he could teach him about where the ball was coming from. And yeah, I thought that's a really cool way of putting it to a kid. That, like, if you're saying that initially, you've actually got the first piece, you've actually got a recognition that, hey, listen, you're going to need a bit of additional support in this area that I can't provide. That's humility. But on the other side, it makes you actually, from a coaching standpoint, reflect of, I've got a responsibility to put you in situations where you just said there, if it's one pass, that's job done.
Yeah, and I would say, I think City, I think Pep and City don't get enough credit for as pragmatic as they are, to be honest, because like Haaland does get in off one pass. Like when Ederson, if a team does come and full press them, which is sort of rare, really. A lot of teams go like mid to low block against them, which is obviously why you don't see that type of goal a lot. But when teams do, Ederson just kicks it behind. I remember I was at the Etihad, I don't know if it was 2 seasons ago, when Arsenal had a big wobble up. Saliba didn't play, Holding played centre half, and they were going full press, and Ederson was just going straight over everyone's head, 1v1. I think the first goal come off of it. Haaland backed into Holding, lays it off, De Bruyne is through. So I think I never like to use Pep and City and Haaland as a rule, because I genuinely do think they're an exception, not the rule. Which is, I think a lot of football is sort of going that way, that everybody wants to have the holy grail of 60, 70% possession, no attacks against, XG through the roof. But I think it's knowing what you've got in front of you. And I think if teams started to work backwards from, right, we need to score goals, who have we got in the building that we trust to score goals? How do we create chances for them? What are they? What is their best attributes? For me, for example, if you're going to get it wide and cross it really early all the time, am I going to score loads of goals? Probably not. If you had a 6'2" striker in there who loves heading balls, you would score more goals. It's just sort of natural, and it's just that sort of common sense approach in football that I think is just lacking in most areas, to be honest.
I was in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago, and went to the Champions League game, and I saw Lewandowski up close, and it's probably the first position I watch in a football match when I'm just a casual observer. I love watching a top class centre forward operate, and I thought he was so, and again the age bracket might play in their role, but I saw he's so deliberate with his movement. Ball moved across. They're obviously going right to left and left to right a fair bit in their possession. He's always peeling off, and it's not movement that screams in your face, but it's so succinct and so specific. I guess going to your support for players, or even in your experience, what are some things off the ball that you're looking for that movement, or how would you see improving that there for a young player?
So obviously I've done a lot more sort of analysis stuff in the last couple of years, just in terms of my own game and watching other players and watching younger strikers. And I see it at the academy a lot. And it sounds ridiculous, but players make really good runs at just totally wrong times. Like, there was an example in training for one of the age groups I was with the other day, and this kid's gone like, he's on the left, he's a striker, but he's playing out on the left, and he's gone inside and then out, like in behind. And I'm like, what a great run. But the person on the ball, it's bouncing knee high. He has no control over the ball, and it's on his weak foot. And also the kid was the 9 who had the ball. And I'm thinking, and it was a great interview of Thierry Henry, I thought, a few years ago, where he went into Arsene Wenger and said, they're not passing me the ball. Big sulk. And he said something along the lines of, like, you need to recognise who you're playing with. And Henry's like, what do you mean? And I think it's so important as a number 9, right? Because, and then he goes on to explain, he says, if Pires has got the ball and he's cutting inside, you can run because he sees you. Bergkamp the same. If Bergkamp's anywhere on the pitch, run because he's seen you. Don't worry about it, basically. If you're playing with Freddie Ljungberg, who's head down, wants to get to the byline and cut it back, he might need you in his eye line for a bounce, but he's not opening up and sliding you down the side. So I think it's so important as a number 9 to recognise that, when to run, who to run for, because there is players that won't pass you the ball over the top. There is players that don't want to risk the ball like that. I've been lucky enough to play with players that, like, fantastic range of passing, like, really like to play forward. The best one for me has probably been Dan Barlaser at Middlesbrough. He just puts the ball at risk all the time. Like, he's always looking top line. And he was just fantastic to play with for me, because I would move early and he would see things early. But there's plenty of midfielders that just don't see it, don't want to do it. So you think, right, I don't have to go now, but off the next pass, I might get in, sort of thing. So I think it's definitely recognition. It's sitting down with them and saying, right, can you see that that's not the right run to make at that point? Because I think the thing, when I've thought about doing this business and coaching and things, I'm a certain type of striker. So at no point do I want to say there is only one way to run. There is only one way to do this position. But I just want to sort of give them ideas and try and just make them think about maybe different things, different options. Because there's no, like you would have found out, there's no one way to play football. There's no one way to be a number 9, but there is definitely little things that you can think about and have in your mind as to, especially like you were saying with Lewandowski, is he's so deliberate with the movement. If he wants to go in behind, he wants to affect the centre half to then create the space for him behind. There was a great clip I saw of him. He's sort of found himself on the left and somebody's driving him the ball. And it looks, I don't know if it's conscious or not, but he gets himself into the eye line of the defender as if he's going to run across him. Defender takes one look away from him and he goes in behind him. I was like, oh my God. So he's narrowed him up and now he's got space for a shot. It was just brilliant. And I think Suarez he was fantastic at it. His movement was so deliberate. And you don't see it as much anymore. But they were the guys that are getting to 35, 36 with still playing with a load of goals under their belt.
All right, coaches, last message from me. Again, thank you so much for all the support this year. We're almost at 50,000 subscribers. But this last message is to say thank you to everyone who's reached out with the individual consultation. We've been working with 5 coaches over the last 6 weeks, and we are aiming to work with 5 more. So if you're looking at starting the new year with a coaching plan, or looking at some feedback on the work you've done and you want to work with us individually, it can be about game model review, game model preparation, tactical analysis, or we work with some data experts that we bring into it as well. So if you're a coach working at a high level and you're looking to incorporate some help with data and maybe look at upskilling your work with some data, we can help connect the dots with that there as well. Modern Soccer Coach individual consultation. We don't promote this side of Modern Soccer Coach. It's something that we do different from other companies that will talk that they're working with this coach and that coach. That kind of goes against what we believe. It's all private, unless the coach wants to put something out there. It's all private. We keep it quiet. We work with the coaches. We enjoy solving particular challenges, providing specific solutions. We love doing that there, again, alongside analysis, data, game model review, all that side. There's tons of options available. modernsoccercoach.com/shop. If you're looking to start the new year with a little bit more direction or just some support and coaching, and you want to jump on a call every now and again, we've got that there as well. So thanks so much for the support, and check it out, modernsoccercoach.com/shop. Thank you.
Yeah, I love this topic. The best I ever seen, Conor, was Klinsmann, Jurgen Klinsmann. I watched when I was a kid. I watched him at Windsor Park for Northern Ireland against Germany, and I'd never seen movement like it across affecting 2 centre backs. I had zero knowledge of the game at that stage, and it jumped. That's how clear it was. But I wonder, again, you talking about Suarez and talking about Lewandowski and even yourself of playing the volume of games you've played, how much of that do you have to experience and live in order to kind of understand those situations and learn as you go, so to speak?
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like I was saying earlier, I learned on the fly. I had a really tough period at QPR where a ball wasn't going in the back of the net, but I learned so much off of Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and Les Ferdinand, just little nuances of the game, and exactly what I'm trying to sort of impart on people. It was just options, just choices. A lot of it was off the ball stuff in terms of how to be a number 9 on their own, basically, because I'd never really done it. And listen, I didn't enjoy it because it just felt like I was constantly getting scrutinised for this, that, and whatever. But it made me a hell of a better player, and has helped my career no end. It made me think about the game a lot more. So, but yeah, there's definitely an element of you need to go out and experience these situations, because it's easy. I could show anybody a clip of and then say, right, go and do this on the pitch, and it's just recognising. You almost get a sense of it when you're playing, of like, okay, I can feel him coming towards me here, so then I'm going to spin in that way. That's that sort of thing. But yeah, I think it's more just opening up people's eyes to different options and mixing the game up a little bit. And I think a lot of the stuff I've been looking at recently is sort of how players use their body. I think it's something that I've been pretty good at over my career. I'm only 5'9", but I always try and affect the centre back, and it's the timing of it. And it's not until you watch other people do it, especially younger players, and you're like, I can help you with that, because you're getting in a fight really early with a centre half who is 10 kilos heavier than you. It's not going to end in success for you. So, but that stuff like that just came off of pure experience. Because there was one, I was watching a game for one of the age groups, and he, off the goal kick, just the striker's gone and stood behind the centre half 5 or 10 yards. And I thought, clever. As soon as the ball was kicked, he ran as quickly as he could round the front of him to try and pin him, and the ball was in the air for about 3 or 4 seconds before it got to him. And I was like, great idea, execution's just not quite there. And Havertz is unbelievable at it. It wasn't until I sat on Y-Scout, nerdy as it is, and just watched a load of aerial duels with Havertz, I was thinking to myself, how is he so effective at it? Like, he always seems to affect the defender. Things bounce off of him and land to his teammates. And it's just pure timing of it. It's like, right, ball's coming. The centre-half's looking at him, he's looking at him. As soon as the centre-half takes his eyes off him, looks at the ball, bum. Centre-half's like that, oh my God. Oh. It's just the timing, the nuance of, because he's not the biggest, obviously, but he uses his body so well at the right times to create situations for himself.
something else, I think coaches, again, just in general, are probably guilty of being really specific in the collective and then being really generic in the or lacking detail in the individual feedback. When you reference there, like, and what I think of that is the amount of coaches that have 50-page PowerPoints and game models, but then when it comes to a centre forward asking for a bit of feedback, we'll say your movement's got to be better, lacks the context, lacks the how. You're laughing because you've probably heard it. When you go to Jimmy Floyd and Les Ferdinand, who are two legends, I mean, were there specifics in terms of like timing, spaces? Was it volume of work? What was? Do you remember some of their feedback?
A little bit of everything. Yeah, generally was a little bit of everything. Sometimes I'd be walking past Les in the corridor, and he'd pull me in and say, "I've got a couple of things to show you," and it would be on movement, or it would be on link-up play, something that I've always struggled with, being my size, to be honest. So yeah, a lot of it was individual stuff like that, just off the cuff, a couple of clips here and there. Some of it would be the gaffer pulling me after training and doing really specific things in terms of set up touch. So to get that shot off quick, where does your touch need to be? Diagonal. And that's an individual thing as well, I think. I'm quite comfortable hitting shots off of like almost like a negative touch. Like you see it a lot now. People say, don't let him inside, don't let him inside. But people actually they're so comfortable with it now, they actually do the touch almost like diagonally backwards. It's like you can't really stop that as a defender unless you're saying like, listen, go down the line, because you're not. So yeah, it's an interesting one, and a lot of that will be individual. But I did a lot of work on sort of taking touches at speed, past mannequins, things like that, just so when the time came in the game, and listen, it might not happen for 10 games, it might happen 4 times in 10 games, you don't know, but the repetition's there and you feel comfortable, right, that ball's coming there, I'm just going to take my touch in there and go and finish. So yeah, it was a real mixture of things, and I think that's what strikers need. They do need a real mixture of stuff. You need back to goal stuff. You need stuff where you're running onto things. You need stuff where you're taking 2 touch. You need stuff where you're taking 1 touch. And I think it's not a one size fits all. You need to recognise and try and pinpoint, like, how can I help this particular number 9, and then how can I help this one? How can I help this one? But listen, the manpower is a big issue, obviously. But I do think clubs should make more use of strikers they have at the club, and then players that are transitioning into coaching, I think, have got more to offer initially as IDP coaches rather than being a 15s assistant coach. Because I don't know if all players feel the same as this, but we've got a brilliant coach at 18s here. And I went up and watched the session, and I've watched a few of his analysis things, just totally overawed by the level of detail, things he sees on a big pitch. I'm just looking at the striking as all I'm interested in. Like, I can't help myself. Like, I'm like the centre half splitting and angles of the split and things like that, like just going way over my head at this point because I've not done it enough. But what I can add value in is being a striker. Of course it is. And I just don't think enough players are being sort of pushed into that sort of role, because then you can always go from there into more sort of general coaching, managing, things like that. But I think initially players that are transitioning have got such value to add in those specific roles.
Yeah. Have you looked at being a manager and thought, not for me, or is that something that maybe down the road?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I've done a sports science degree. I'm doing my badges. I jumped on one of the PFA courses for the sporting directorship. I don't really know what it is that I want to do. I'm only 32. I still see myself playing for a few more years. Yeah. But yeah, I honestly couldn't tell you. It's such a funny thing in football, obviously retiring at 35, because I'll be in the next part of my career for way longer than I've been in the last part. So yeah, it's a really interesting thing to think about. But when I think about it right now, obviously I've not shut up this whole time. So I think this is what I'm really passionate about, is helping attackers. So at the moment, I feel like this is probably the route I'll go down. In what sort of context, I don't really know yet, whether in a club or freelance, consultancy base, anything like that. But yeah, I think it's pretty evident that I'm pretty passionate about this.
Oh, it's got massive gains as well. But it's also, there's a stigma to, I've seen this. I actually talked to someone this morning about this topic. There's a stigma to individual coaching and support coaching. Obviously, academies now are becoming more aware, and probably with that level of control that they're investing with players, are thinking, hey, should you be going working with someone? Should you not? But then I see psychologists working for 4 different clubs and consultancy. So, where do you think it go? Not to put you on the spot, where do you think this goes in 10 years? Do you think it goes more in terms of what people do in America, where it becomes, hey, listen, I've got my guy over there, and it becomes more individual? Or do you think clubs will get a hold of this and say, listen, you come in 2 days for us, and then we've no problem with you going 2 days with somebody else? Or what's the space look like in the future?
I think it's really interesting. I think with the amount of money that's in football, especially at the elite level, I don't know the ins and outs of the academies and stuff, but it would amaze me if they couldn't afford to have, say, an attacking coach that covers maybe 2 or 3 age groups, a midfield coach or a central player coach, however you want to word it, for the same age group, and then a defensive one as well. Because you have goalie coaches. So, obviously it's more specialised being a goalie, of course it is, but every other position is highly specialised as well. Like the 6, for example, there's no sixes about, is there? Rodri's pretty much the only decent, like really top level one, isn't he?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a surprise, because people like Guardiola or Rodri himself, or players that have done it, have been there, seen it. They know the pressures, they know the pitfalls of playing in that position. So I would be amazed if it doesn't go down that route, or like you say, does it go down the route of a bit more American, where you just say, listen, I'm seeing this guy. Because I've thought about it. Obviously, barriers to entry for this market for me is the physical stuff. I know you said, when we spoke on the email, you said about Rooney's issue with the sports scientists and stuff and things like that. So, but listen, I've done a sports science degree. I know how murky all this stuff is. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to why people get injured. They still don't know. There's a million factors to why people get injured. Is doing 50 shots at the end of training more likely to injure you? No, I just don't see it. There's like you say, there's a million things that go on for somebody to get injured. So, but I think, could I go down the route of whoever I'm working with wearing a GPS and reporting that back to the club? Yeah, could we do that? But I do think that all the topic of load management and things like that, and shooting, and do I think it's smart to go, right, I've only had 3 shots this week, I'm going to go do 50 shots with this guy? Probably not, because it's just a spike in load, and you're thinking, right, you are asking for trouble there. But if you can just integrate things, Alan would give me stuff to do on a daily basis, right? Go after training, do this drill, just so you're keeping the reps up, even when I'm not working with him.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, when you're talking about all these dynamics, I have no clue. I think I completely agree with you. I think the goalkeeper world is so socially acceptable now, and there's some brilliant operators. Like, they've done some fantastic work in that space. But I don't know why it is that something with a really, really high level of return, like a centre forward, wouldn't kind of generate that. But I think that would be more appealing for young coaches, and I think that would actually carry the game forward with a little bit more specialization. Yeah,
for sure. I think football's only going to get more specialised as time goes on. I think I see, obviously, substitution coaches, set piece coaches. I think some academies do the IDP coaches with that sort of positional. I think some clubs do that. I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure Sheffield United do it on a similar sort of basis, where I don't know how many age groups this person's responsible for, but even say if I was going to go and be the 16 to 21s IDP coach attacking wise at Derby, I think it would be great to get all of those lads in a room together and watch some clips. I think it would be great to go out on the pitch and do a drill or a few drills an hour where they're all learning from each other, because what a great experience for the 16s to see what the 21s are doing, to see the level, to see where you need to get to. Is there any little things that you might pick up off of just through natural sort of osmosis of like, oh, every time he does that, he puts that in the top corner, or his touch is so clean there. But is there the facility to do it at the moment? Probably not. And I think if there is, it's almost like a bit of a token, might happen once a month if the schedules line up. And listen, I'm not in an academy system every day, so I understand, but I am around it a little bit. So I understand the scheduling is a huge issue in general. But I think more of an effort could be made to make these things a reality.
Let's move on to psychology now. The obviously similar to a goalkeeper, really. The psychology of a centre forward. I guess two things. We'll talk about how you kind of work through your mentoring program, but before that, I guess how are some managers in your experience of how best to handle centre forwards?
Yeah, I've had it in a few ways. To be fair, I've had ones obviously like Jimmy Ford Hasselbank, who sort of knew the role, but didn't necessarily handle it in a way that I would have handled it. I've had other managers that have never played up front, obviously giving you stick about scoring the goal. And I don't know if it's just, was it a naive thing, an immature thing for me, but instantly I go back to that man in the arena thing. It's like, you've never been in that situation, or you might have been in it once or twice, and you get allowances as players that aren't number nines to be able to miss those, really. I think the pressure of being a number nine and that man that's being relied on to score goals, to hold the ball up, to run in behind, to make a nuisance of yourself, to link the play. Because I think they're getting used more and more in the build-up now as well. Just getting like balls drilled into them in the middle of the pitch and getting told to look after it, sort of thing. So, and I think, do I speak for all strikers? Probably not. But if I earlier in my career had somebody as a bit of a mentor who said, "Listen, I know what you're going through. I've been there. I've gone 10 games without a goal." I think it would just make you just feel a bit better about it. And there's just little techniques that I've used. Done a bit of the work with a psychologist who introduced me to this concept, just like rush to failure sort of thing. And I think it's a Navy SEAL thing or something like that. But they say when they're doing shooting practice, they hit one every six bullets. They hit the target. So they almost rush to get to six because they're more likely to. The quicker they get to six, the quicker they get one, basically. And it's a little bit like that as a striker. Sometimes when you miss 3 in a row, you're thinking the fourth one you're more likely to miss. But what you don't realise, it's almost like gambling. It's mutually exclusive to each other. Shot 1 is mutually exclusive to shot 2. You're no more or less likely to score. Well, you're a lot less likely to score if you think they are linked. Of course you are. But you see it with Haaland. He just almost like has this little wry smile, and then within 5 minutes he seems to have scored after missing one. I mean, there's loads of compilations of Cristiano Ronaldo missing open goals and like missing massive chances, and you would just never associate the two things together because he just jumps onto the next one. He's just in that sort of rush to failure thing. He just gets himself in the position again and again and again. And it's easy to sit here and speak about it on a podcast, but when you're in a game and every time the ball's coming in, you're thinking, "Oh, I need to score this one because I've missed the last two." Like it's a tough place to be.
Yeah, I mean, I play the game at a very, very, very bang average level, but I'm fascinated now when I look back, and there was no way I had the personality to be a centre forward, Conor. Like, I didn't have the strength of character. I didn't have the capabilities to brush those things off. And now when I look at the game, even 30 years ago, like I look at the game now, 5 times as much pressure and as much scrutiny on young players and academy players. Is there a personality where the more compliant a kid is, the more it helps you be that 6, like, okay, we need you to do this. So you can almost be over coached as a 9, where you need to have that mindset, I think, to be able to let criticism roll off the shoulder, to actually, again, what you did there and say, listen, man in the arena, you don't know what I'm doing. You say to yourself that I'm going to kind of show him. Like, I just think that's a personality. Do you see a connection there at all?
Yeah, for sure. I think going back to your point about Guardiola and Lewandowski as well, I think it's exactly that. I think Guardiola's sort of saying to him, listen, I don't really know what's going on in your head in and around the 18-yard box. You do whatever you want, but I want to get you more involved in the team, and what a great way to manage people. And I'm assuming the top guys are doing that rather than, like you say, over coaching and saying, I need you to do this, I need you to hold it up, I need you to do that. And I think if I think of all the best strikers I've played with, they are all like that, and you see it. Ronaldo, Haaland, Lewandowski, Suarez. There's an edge to them, isn't there? Of like, you can tell that like. Even more attacking players like De Bruyne, like you see him having an argument with Pep as he's running down the side of the pitch, telling him to do one, basically. Like, I know what I'm doing, sort of thing. And I think there is definitely a danger of, as a 9, being overcoached and being too compliant, for sure, because I've been there. I've been that player because I felt like I missed such a big chunk of education, technical development and things like that, that a little bit later in my career, I took way too much on board of what people were telling me to do, and I got almost obsessed with keeping the ball. And then you go 90 minutes and you've done nothing of note, and you're like, I went from being this really exciting player who was just like off the cuff, like I didn't know what I was doing, so these centre halves definitely didn't know what I was doing, just flicking things around the corner and just running after them, to then being like, right, I need to take 2 touches here, I need to secure this ball. And it's like, like I say, do I speak for all strikers? Probably not, but I know that I fell into that trap of being overcoached.
Yeah, but the trap even continues for me, where the compliant centre forward will then become the willing presser and run and do all the defensive work, which means then you'll be knackered when you got the ball. Sometimes it's a personality to say, do you know what? Kind of brush off work at times because they're being intelligent about what's going to pay the bills.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I only have to go back to the Cristiano Ronaldo at Man United debate. Like, he'd just come off the back of scoring the first player for ages to score 20 plus for United, and nobody was even close to him. Like, it was the only reason. There was a few Champions League games, or was it Champions League or Europa League? He was just dragging them through with goals. It was ridiculous. But after the game, all you would see is, I ran 9.5K today. Can't press with Ronaldo. Lukaku's the same. Lukaku's goal record is outrageous, but because he's not technically clean and doesn't glide across the floor, it doesn't press every single ball. It's like, and I even see it a little bit with Arsenal. Like, Havertz isn't a number 9, and he does so much work outside of the box. It's no wonder he doesn't score 20 goals. It's impossible. Like Gabriel Jesus, the same. And I think it's interesting that Pep. I don't know how much if Pep wanted to sign Haaland or anything like that, and I don't know if they do demand more than what he gives. But he just looks like he stands in the 6, never really leaves the width of the 18-yard box, and he just scores goals all the time. And I think Salah's a little bit the same. Salah knows what he's good at, and he does that, and he's probably the most underrated player to have ever played in the Premier League, in my opinion, because some of the stick he gets, who was it the other day who said he wasn't world class? Like, his numbers are the same as Thierry Henry's.
Oh, Paul Merson.
Thierry Henry's, yeah. Like Thierry Henry's, he's within like 2 or 3 games of having like near enough the exact same stats as Thierry Henry, one of the greatest players ever to have played in the Premier League. And this fella's getting told he's not world class. Like, he's playing on the wing. Like, give me a break. Like, so I do think, and I think it sort of also merges into your point of why we're not producing number 9s, is because everyone's obsessed with being that silky sort of number 10 wingery high 8. Like, there's just, you look in academies now, that's all they're producing. And it's funny because my 6-year-old plays Sunday football. Honestly, he stands up front and just scores goals. He does not do anything else. I can't get him to do anything else. He will not track back. But give him the ball, he just recognition of space, right, I need to pull off here, and then he scores. I think he scored a stupid amount of goals. And it's like, our academy coach is looking for that. Like, are we looking for the big centre-half who just loves defending? Like, even at that age, it's almost like a super strength thing, whereas like realistically, they want 2-footed players, good at dribbling, can pass it. It's like, are we in danger of just creating a whole team of like really generic footballers?
Yeah, and generic personalities where, again, I don't think there's a preference, especially in the US development system, of, hey, we need to develop compliant players. But I think there's a bias towards the player who does what that's easier to manage and does what you want them to do with a smile on their face is always going to be, for an inexperienced coach. I think you just need to be so experienced as a coach in terms of you understand that the player who scores you 10 goals is going to be harder to manage, but you move to that player rather than easier to manage, probably is just going to produce average performances. That's why I say experiences that lost a lot of football matches because of it. And you're like, I think you need to go through that as a coach to learn that, the people that are going to be difficult to manage are probably the ones that are going to win you the games.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's probably, as you can tell, I'm an Arsenal fan, just speak so much about them, but I do think it's where Arsenal have been lacking in the last 2 or 3 seasons. They haven't had anyone that's going to score when it doesn't look likely that Arsenal are going to score. Whereas obviously City have got Haaland, and that just looks like the difference to me. We see it a little bit with people like Nunez, Nicholas Jackson. Jackson's done brilliant this year. I think his all-round game's exceptional. But is he ever going to get 27, 28, 29 goals like Haaland does? Probably not, because he looks, and not Nunez almost the same. They look so compliant. They do so much of their work outside of the box. They set the press off. They link the play really well. Maybe not so much Nunez, but especially Jackson. And you just think to yourself, are you going to be that striker that gets 25 plus? But in the age of this game model and this is how we play and things like this, I hate it. I honestly hate it, especially as a player, because you just think, right, that's your game model. But what happens if they go to a 4 during the game? They started with a 5, they go to a 4, or I don't know, some other sort of nuanced examples of taking a game model into a team that just doesn't suit the game model. Yeah. For example, like you go and play a 3 and you've got 3 massive centre halves who can't move and they're just getting done constantly 1v1. Like, there's got to be a little bit more pragmatism in football. I think that Postecoglou's sort of going through it now, really. His commitment to this plan A is losing in football matches at the end of the day. And I said it earlier, and obviously there's massive bias there, but I genuinely think you should work backwards from how you want to score goals rather than how your first third build-up looks. Like, we see it all the time in the Championship, week in, week out. 3-2-5, 2-3-5. Everyone does the same thing. And they create 3v3, 2v2 at the top of the pitch, and the ball never goes there. And you're thinking, like, how are you going to score goals? I just don't understand it.
God, I could do another hour on this. I completely agree. There's an absolute, not even a bias. There's an obsession with build, and even you see it over here with, they're not even building under pressure, because now with the the dynamics of substitutions and the variety of what you can do and players fatigue, people are getting a free run up to the halfway line sometimes with this block defended, but teams are still obsessed. I'm convinced, Conor, that it's control. I think it's easier to manage. I think it's easier to practice. You can map, build out, do different variations, and you can control that at a way higher level than if you're going to work on a finishing session. Like, you don't get the momentum of success. It's hard to manage variation. Done a podcast there last week on a Spanish methodology coach talking about, like, even mini goals, so easy to pop it in a mini goal after you win the ball. I think coaches will gravitate towards less tension with players, especially at an age that players can speak. So they go to build up all the time. And I do believe it's at the detriment of scoring goals.
Yeah, for sure, because it only takes the other manager to do something slightly different in the way they press or don't press. And I just think, if you're giving these guys, just like making them autonomous beings, and you're seeing no creativity, and right, so if he does cut inside and looks for that pass that you've told him's on and it's not there, bombs going off in his head. I am panicking. So if you're not encouraging them to make their own decisions, to improve decision making, And even the 1v1 stuff. Like, I know it's coming back in foundation phase now, because everyone's man for man. If you can beat your man, you are cooking.
Yeah.
You're like, the other team is like, whoa, I don't know who's going to him now. I don't know. He's not my man. That's what you end up creating. It's this like, well, you told me that and it wasn't on. So what do you want me to do, sort of thing? And then, like you say, it's, rather than getting attention on the training pitch, you end up getting attention on match day where the centre half says, well, you told us they were going to press with the 1. They pressed with the 2. So yeah, I think we are definitely in danger of that.
I think as well, God, not to go off on a tangent, but I think as well, players are, when the game models came in, it was presented because it was different and it was presented as a real innovative way. And I'm not saying they're not valuable. Of course they are. They create a structure and give some clarity, but to present them as the solution to every problem, when you're a footballer, I'm sure you've seen that as well, where you're sitting in a meeting going, yeah, but we worked on that all week and that didn't happen. So
yeah, for sure. I'm in no way sort of slating game models as a concept, because I do think there should be principles that you all live by, in and out of possession behaviours, which I think, going back to Liverpool again, and even a lot of Pep's teams, to be fair, he's sort of gone away from the high press, counter press thing, really. But I mean, Liverpool are brilliant at it, and it's just the behaviour, no matter what shape they played, which I think is the nuance behind game models, is right. These are our behaviours in whatever shape we're doing. Mid block, low block, we still have the same similar sort of behaviours, right? If we win the ball back, first pass forward, from reading that Pep Lijnders book, and that's not a formational thing. That's not a tactical. That's everyone's on the same page. That's what a game model is to me. A set of principles in and out of possession, on transition, that everybody understands, but there's still room for creativity and decision making within that.
Brilliant. All right, last one for you. This is flown. I'm a coach who is listening to this and saying, "Oh my God, this is another world for me. I've ignored my centre forward for 6 months, but I've got no assistant coach, so I can't afford to bring Conor in to work with players." What are some easy gains for you to say to coaches, like, freshen this up and give the number 9 a little bit more support?
I think you can make it as simple as you want. I don't think it has to be fancy drills. I think it could be as simple as, you don't even need a goalie. It's just a mannequin left-hand side of the box, firing the ball. He cuts inside, puts it far corner. He cuts inside, puts it near post. It's just, I think, the easiest gains to make with striker coaching in the current game is repetition. Can you give them 10 first-time finishes, left foot? Can you give them 10 right foot? Can you encourage them just to keep hitting the back of the net? It's such an old school saying, isn't it? But I always go into games way more confident if I've scored 20 goals in training during the week than I do if I've not kicked the ball into a goal. But it's just, it sounds so stupid, but it's just common sense to me. And then obviously you can build it from there. There's loads of resources out there into how goals are scored. And like I said, does it need to be 5 or 6 passes and like intricate build up before you get there? No. It just needs to be a ball, a goal, some technical work and repetition.
Brilliant. What a way to finish. Conor, thanks so much. I've loved this. Thanks for coming on. We should do it again sometime.
Yeah, we've got about 3 more hours, I think, haven't we?